I gave my Christmas bonus to a homeless Santa. I didn't know he was actually the CEO of the company that just... Before we begin this story, tell me where you're watching from and rate this story from 0 to 10 in the comments. Enjoy the story. The wind cutting down Fifth Avenue wasn't just cold, it was personal. It was the kind of razor-sharp, wet December chill that bypassed the skin entirely and settled deep in the marrow of your bones, vibrating with the miserable frequency of New York City in winter. To the tourists swarming Rockefeller Center, with their rosy cheeks and overpriced hot chocolates, the snow swirling around the skyscrapers looked magical, like living inside a shaken snow globe. But to Liam Miller, standing on the frozen sidewalk clutching a cardboard box containing the last 5 years of his life, the snow looked like ash. Liam, 28, was a man who had done everything right. He had arrived early, stayed late, fixed the printers when IT was busy, and covered shifts for coworkers who had emergencies that mysteriously coincided with concert dates. He believed in the contract. You work hard, you stay loyal, and the company takes care of you. That contract had just been shredded, incinerated, and thrown out the window of the 42nd floor of the Omnicorp Tower behind him. He touched his chest pocket. Inside, resting against his pounding heart, was a thin white envelope. It wasn't a Christmas card. It was a check for $3,200. His Christmas bonus, they called it. In reality, it was severance. Hush money. Restructuring, the HR director, a woman named Karen, who refused to make eye contact, had said 20 minutes ago. The market is volatile, Liam. We're pivoting to AI-driven logistics. Your role as junior analyst is redundant. This check includes your holiday bonus and 2 weeks' pay. Merry Christmas. Redundant. The word tasted like copper in his mouth. Liam began to walk, simply because standing still meant freezing to death. The city was a cacophony of aggressive joy. Jingle Bell Rock blared from storefront speakers. Salvation Army bells rang with manic persistence. People in cashmere coats rushed past him, carrying bags from Saks and Tiffany's, bumping into his shoulder without apologizing, their eyes fixed on destinations that promised warmth and family. Liam had neither. His rent in Queens was due in 3 days. He had $400 in his checking account. His mother, back in Ohio, was expecting him to fly home for New Year's, a trip he could no longer afford. He was adrift in a sea of wealth, drowning in plain sight. He reached the corner of 51st Street, waiting for the light to change. The smell of roasted chestnuts from a street cart mingled with the exhaust fumes of 1,000 yellow taxis. That's when he saw him. In the recessed doorway of a luxury watch store, a place where a single wristwatch cost more than Liam's entire college tuition, sat a figure that was a grotesque parody of the season. It was a Santa Claus, but not the jolly, padded figures you saw in the malls. This Santa was a ruin. His red suit was stained with grime and soot, the white fur trim matted and gray, looking like dirty slush. The beard wasn't a pristine theatrical prop. It was hanging loose, revealing a face underneath that was gaunt, smudged with dirt, and framed by eyes that seemed to have stared into the abyss and blinked. He wasn't ringing a bell. He wasn't asking for money. He was simply sitting on a piece of wet cardboard, shivering so violently that the oversized black boots on his feet rattled against the concrete. Next to him was a small, torn paper cup. It was empty. Liam watched as the crowd reacted to the homeless Santa. It was a masterclass in dehumanization. A businessman in a camel hair coat stepped deliberately wide to avoid brushing against him. A mother pulled her child closer, whispering, "Don't look, honey, just keep walking." A group of teenagers laughed, one of them pretending to kick the empty cup before strutting away. The Santa didn't react. He just sat there, shaking, his head bowed, staring at his frozen hands. He looked like a discarded toy, thrown out after the holiday morning excitement had faded.
Liam felt a tightness in his throat that had nothing to do with the cold. He looked at the gleaming tower of Omnicorp behind him, the place where the CEO, Mr. Arthur Sterling, was likely popping champagne at the executive holiday party right now. Sterling, a man who had just fired 200 people on Christmas Eve to boost the Q4 stock price. Then he looked at the Santa. We are the same, Liam thought, a bitter realization washing over him. I'm just one missed rent payment away from being him. We are both redundant. We are both invisible.
The light changed to walk, but Liam didn't move. His hand went to his pocket. He felt the envelope. The $3,200. That money was his lifeline. It was his rent. It was food for the next 2 months while he looked for a job in a dead market. It was his survival. Giving it away was insanity. It was suicide. But then the homeless Santa looked up. For a split second, their eyes locked across the swirling snow. Liam expected to see madness or drug-induced haze. Instead, he saw a profound, piercing blue clarity. It was a look of such utter, crushing defeat that it shattered Liam's heart. It was the look of a man who had accepted that he would freeze to death tonight, surrounded by millions of lights. Liam thought of his mother. He thought of the lesson she drilled into him since kindergarten. Character, Liam, is what you do when you have nothing left to give. Liam cursed under his breath. Damn it. He stepped out of the flow of pedestrian traffic. He walked toward the doorway. The smell of the man hit him. Stale alcohol, old sweat, and damp wool. It was the scent of misery. Liam stood over him. The Santa flinched, instinctively curling in on himself, expecting to be told to move along or to be spat on. Hey, Liam said, his voice raspy. The Santa looked up slowly, wary. I ain't bothering no one, kid. Just restin'. His voice was a low rumble, rough like gravel. I know, Liam said. He dropped his box of personal belongings onto the wet pavement. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the envelope. The Omnicorp logo was embossed in silver on the corner. Liam stared at the envelope one last time. He thought about his empty fridge. He thought about the eviction notice that would come in January. He felt the fear gripping his stomach like a vice. Then he pushed the fear down. Here, Liam said, extending his hand. The Santa looked at the envelope, then at Liam's face. He didn't take it. What's this? A tract? I don't need saving, son. It's not a tract, Liam said, kneeling down so he was eye level with the man. The cold wetness of the sidewalk soaked instantly into his dress pants. It's money. A check. The Santa narrowed his eyes. A check? Who takes checks from a bum? It's a cashier's check, Liam lied, though it was close enough. It's endorsed. Anyone can cash it. There's a check cashing place on 8th Avenue open until midnight. How much? The Santa asked, suspicion heavy in his tone. Liam swallowed hard. $3,200. The Santa froze. The shivering stopped for a second, replaced by shock. $3,000? Kid, are you high? Why would you give me $3,000? Because, Liam whispered, glancing back at the Omnicorp tower looming over them like a tombstone. I just got fired. That's my severance. It's blood money from a company that treats people like garbage. If I keep it, I feel like I'm agreeing with them, like I'm accepting that money is all that matters. Liam shoved the envelope into the Santa's gloved hands. The gloves were fingerless, the skin underneath blue with cold. Take it, Liam insisted, his voice trembling now. Get a hotel room, a real one. Get a hot meal, buy a coat. Just don't stay out here tonight, please. Nobody should be alone tonight. The Santa held the envelope as if it weighed 1,000 pounds. He looked at the Omnicorp logo on the corner. A strange, unreadable emotion flickered across his face. Was it anger? Amusement? Sorrow? You got fired from there? The Santa asked, gesturing with a tilt of his head toward the tower. Yeah, junior analyst. Cutbacks. Liam laughed bitterly, standing up and wiping his knees. Merry Christmas to me, right? The Santa looked down at the envelope, then back up at Liam. The piercing blue eyes seemed to be scanning Liam's soul, dismantling him, measuring his worth. "You're a fool, Liam," the Santa said softly. He read the name off the box on the ground. "A fool to give your last dime to a stranger." "Maybe." Liam picked up his box, shivering as the wind picked up. "But at least tonight I'm a fool who can sleep knowing I helped someone." "You won't regret this?" the Santa asked, his voice suddenly sharper, less gravelly. "I'll probably regret it tomorrow when my landlord calls," Liam admitted with a sad smile. "But right now, no, I don't regret it." "Thank you," the Santa said. He didn't say it like a beggar thanking a patron. He said it with a strange gravity. "You have no idea what this means." "Stay warm, Santa." Liam turned away, buttoning his coat against the biting wind. He walked away, merging back into the crowd of strangers. He felt lighter. Terrified, yes. Broke, absolutely. But lighter. He didn't look back. If he had, he would have seen something strange. He would have seen the homeless Santa stand up, not with the stiffness of an old, frozen man, but with the agility of someone much younger and healthier. He would have seen a black town car pull up to the curb silently. He would have seen the homeless man open the rear door and slide in, tossing the dirty Santa hat onto the leather seat. And he would have heard the command given to the driver. "Follow him, Jenkins, and get HR on the phone. I want to know exactly who authorized the firing of Liam Miller." The subway ride back to Queens was a blur of screeching metal and fluorescent lights. Liam sat squeezed between a woman with 3 grocery bags and a man sleeping with his mouth open, clutching his cardboard box of office belongings on his lap like a shield. The adrenaline of his grand gesture on Fifth Avenue had evaporated, replaced by a cold, gnawing nausea in the pit of his stomach. $3,200. The number replayed in his mind on a loop, mocking him with the rhythm of the train wheels. Click-clack, you're broke. Click-clack, you're an idiot. By the time he climbed the stairs out of the station at Astoria Ditmars, the snow had turned into a bleak gray slush. He walked the 4 blocks to his basement apartment, head down against the wind. When he reached his building, a pre-war brick structure that smelled perpetually of boiled cabbage and damp carpet, he stopped. Taped to his door, fluttering violently in the drafty hallway, was a piece of paper. It wasn't a holiday greeting. It was neon orange. Notice to quit. Liam ripped it off the door, his fingers trembling. It was the legal warning. He was 2 months behind. He had promised the landlord, Mr. Henderson, that he would pay the back rent with his Christmas bonus. He had literally looked the man in the eye yesterday and sworn on his mother's life that the cash would be in his hand by December 26th. Liam unlocked his door and stepped inside. The apartment was freezing. The radiator hissed and clanked, but produced no heat. He dropped his box on the floor and collapsed onto his futon, still wearing his coat. He held the orange notice in one hand and his phone in the other. He opened his banking app. Balance, $412.03. He stared at the ceiling where a water stain shaped like a map of Florida was slowly expanding. Panic, cold and sharp, began to constrict his chest. He had just given away his survival. For what? To feel good for 10 seconds? To impress a homeless man who probably thought he was insane? I ruined my life. I literally just paid a stranger to watch me drown. Meanwhile, 40 floors above the city, the atmosphere was very different. The penthouse office of Arthur Sterling was a fortress of glass and steel, floating above the storm. The only light came from the fireplace, crackling with birch logs, and the panoramic view of the Manhattan skyline. Arthur Sterling, the CEO of Omnicorp, stood by the window. He had shed the dirty Santa suit. It lay in a heap on a $1 million Persian rug, looking like a dead animal.
Arthur was now wearing a silk smoking jacket and sipping a 50-year-old Macallan Scotch from a crystal tumbler. He was 55, but he looked 10 years younger, with silver hair and the kind of sharp, predatory features that belonged on a Roman coin. He wasn't looking at the view. He was looking at the white envelope on his mahogany desk. "Jenkins," Arthur said, not turning around. His personal assistant, a man who could organize a coup d'etat before breakfast, stepped out of the shadows. "Sir?"
Did you run the background check? Yes, Mr. Sterling. Liam Miller, age 28. Hired 2 years ago as a junior analyst in logistics. Graduated from Ohio State, magna cum laude. Student loans, $42,000 outstanding. Credit score, 680, currently dropping due to missed utility payments. No criminal record. He sends $200 a month to his mother in Cleveland. Arthur swirled the amber liquid in his glass. And his employment status? Terminated today at 4 p.m., part of the Project Lean initiative authorized by the board. He was one of the 200 redundancies. Arthur picked up the envelope. He pulled out the check. He looked at the signature on the back, a shaky, rushed scrawl of a man who thought he was signing away his life to save another. "I go out there every Christmas Eve, Jenkins," Arthur said softly, almost to himself. "For 10 years I have dressed as a beggar and sat in front of my own building. Do you know why?" "To test the security protocols, sir?" Jenkins guessed. "No, to see who my company is actually serving, to see the people. When you sit at this desk," Arthur gestured to the massive room, "you stop seeing human beings. You see data points. You see overhead. You see redundancies." Arthur walked back to the desk and slammed the check down. "Hundreds of people walked past me tonight, Jenkins. Employees of Omnicorp. People I made rich. VPs in $5,000 coats who didn't even look at me. They stepped over me like I was trash." Arthur's voice hardened, the gravel of the street Santa replaced by the steel of the CEO. "But this kid, this junior analyst with 0 assets and a mountain of debt, he stopped. He looked me in the eye, and he gave me everything he had." Arthur picked up a tablet from his desk. He pulled up Liam's personnel file. He looked at the photo ID, a young, hopeful face that hadn't yet been crushed by corporate cynicism. "He told me he felt like he was agreeing with us if he kept the money," Arthur mused. "He thinks we're the villains, Jenkins." "Technically, sir, we did fire him on Christmas Eve," Jenkins pointed out dryly. "Exactly." Arthur turned to face his assistant, a dangerous glint in his eye. "I want to know who signed the termination order. Was it Karen in HR? It was an algorithmic selection, approved by VP of Operations Marcus Thorne." "Thorne," Arthur spat the name. "The man who spent 40 grand on a company retreat to Cabo while cutting entry-level benefits. Get Thorne in here tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. "It's Christmas Day, sir." "I don't care. If he wants his job, he'll be here." Arthur looked back at the check. Liam Miller. "And Jenkins, send a car for Mr. Miller tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. "Shall I tell him why, sir?" Arthur smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a grandmaster moving a queen. "No. Let him sweat. I want to see if his character holds up when he's terrified, if he's really the man I think he is, or if tonight was just a fluke." The sun rose on Christmas morning, but it brought no joy to apartment 1B in Queens. Liam woke up from a fitful sleep with a stiff neck and a dry mouth. For a split second he forgot. Then the reality crashed down on him. He was unemployed, he was broke, and he had given his severance pay to a hobo. "Merry Christmas, you idiot," he muttered, rolling off the futon. He checked his phone. No messages. No, it was all a mistake, come back to work emails. Just a text from his mom. "Merry Christmas, honey. Love you. Hope work isn't too crazy."
He couldn't bear to reply. He walked to the tiny kitchen to make coffee, but he was out of filters. He used a paper towel. As the brown sludge dripped into his mug, his phone buzzed. Unknown caller. Liam stared at it. Probably a bill collector, or the landlord calling to scream about the orange notice. He debated ignoring it, but curiosity won. "Hello?" he answered, his voice cracking. "Mr. Liam Miller." The voice on the other end was smooth, British, and terrifyingly polite. "Yes?" "This is the executive office of Omnicorp. Please hold for a directive." Liam's heart hammered against his ribs. Executive office? Directive?
"Mr. Miller," the voice continued, "a car has been dispatched to your location. It will arrive in 45 minutes. You are required to return to Omnicorp Tower immediately for an exit interview and asset recovery debriefing." "Asset recovery?" Liam stammered. I turned in my badge. I left my laptop on the desk. I don't have anything." "The audit shows a discrepancy, Mr. Miller. Your presence is mandatory. Failure to appear could result in legal action regarding your severance package." The line went dead. Liam dropped the phone on the counter. His knees gave out and he leaned against the sink. Legal action regarding the severance package? They knew. Somehow they knew. He wasn't supposed to give that check away. Maybe it was against company policy to transfer funds to a third party. Maybe they tracked the check number? Panic spiraled into absurdity. They're going to arrest me for giving my own money to a homeless guy? He ran to the bathroom. He looked at himself in the mirror. He looked wrecked, pale, dark circles under his eyes, 24-hour stubble. "Pull it together," he slapped his cheeks. "You did nothing wrong. You helped a human being. If they want to sue you for that, let them." He showered in 3 minutes flat. He put on his only suit, the one he wore to the funeral of his career yesterday. He couldn't find a clean tie, so he went without one. He looked less like a corporate analyst and more like a defendant walking to the gallows. Exactly 45 minutes later, he stepped out of his building. He expected a police cruiser, or maybe a yellow taxi. Instead, sitting at the curb, gleaming like a black diamond against the dirty slush of Queens, was a Bentley Flying Spur. The driver, a mountain of a man in a black coat, stood by the open rear door. "Mr. Miller?" the driver asked. Yes?" "Please get in." Liam climbed into the car. The leather smelled richer than his entire life. As the car pulled away, gliding over the potholes that usually rattled his teeth, Liam looked out the window at his neighborhood passing by. He felt like a prisoner being transferred to a maximum security facility. He clutched his hands in his lap, praying that the homeless Santa had actually cashed the check. "At least let one of us win," he thought. "If I'm going down, I hope he's eating steak and eggs right now." The car crossed the Queensboro Bridge, the skyline of Manhattan looming ahead. Omnicorp Tower stood in the center, a jagged spike of glass piercing the sky. On a normal Tuesday, this sidewalk would be a river of commuters, coffee cups, and aggression. On Christmas morning, it was dead silent. The revolving doors were still, and the lobby lights dimmed to a ghostly hum. The driver, whose name Liam still didn't know, opened the rear door. "We are here, sir."
Liam stepped out. The wind whipped at his unbuttoned suit jacket, biting through his thin shirt. He looked up at the building where he had spent the last 2 years checking spreadsheets and terrified of missing deadlines. He used to feel pride walking in here. Now he felt like a trespasser at a crime scene. He walked to the main entrance. The security guard at the desk wasn't the usual guy, Ralph, who Liam sometimes exchanged sports scores with. It was a man in a tactical suit, wearing an earpiece. "ID?" the guard asked, not looking up from his monitor. I don't have it," Liam admitted, patting his pockets uselessly. "I turned it in yesterday. My name is Liam Miller. I was told to come here." The guard looked up. His eyes were cold. "Miller, you're cleared. Elevator bank C. Take it to the top." "The top?" Liam blinked. "HR is on the 14th floor." "I didn't say HR," the guard replied, turning back to his screen. "I said the top." Liam swallowed hard. Elevator bank C was the executive lift. It was reserved for VP level and above. In 2 years, Liam had never even stood near it, let alone inside it. Rumor had it the interior was lined with velvet. He walked past the empty turnstiles and approached the gold-plated doors of Bank C. He pressed the button. The doors slid open instantly with a soft whoosh. It wasn't velvet, but it was close. The walls were paneled in mahogany. There were no buttons for floors 1 through 50. There was only a card reader and a single button labeled PH. Penthouse. Liam pressed it. Nothing happened. "Oh God," he whispered. "I'm stuck." Suddenly the panel beeped. A voice came from the ceiling speaker. "Biometric scan confirmed. Welcome, Mr. Miller." The car lurched upward.
It moved with a speed that made his ears pop. Liam watched the floor numbers on the digital display blur. 20, 30, 40, 50. His mind raced. Why the penthouse? This wasn't about a missing laptop. You don't bring a junior analyst to the CEO's office to discuss a severance check error, unless he had done something illegal. Had the check bounced? Was the Santa actually part of a money laundering ring? Had he accidentally funded terrorism with his Christmas bonus? The elevator chimed. PH. The doors opened directly into a room, not a hallway. Liam stepped out onto a carpet so thick he felt his shoes sink an inch. The room was cavernous. A fireplace the size of a garage roared on the far wall. The furniture was modern, leather, and terrifyingly expensive. And the view. The entire south wall was glass, offering a panoramic snow-dusted view of the Empire State Building in Lower Manhattan. But Liam didn't look at the view. He looked at the desk. It was a massive slab of black marble sitting in the center of the room. Behind it sat a man. Arthur Sterling was reading a file. He didn't look up when the elevator dinged. He didn't look up when Liam stepped out. He simply turned a page, the sound of the paper echoing in the silent room. Liam stood there, awkward and terrified, his hands clasped in front of him like a schoolboy sent to the principal. "Mr. Sterling?" Liam's voice was a squeak. He cleared his throat. "Mr. Sterling, sir?" Arthur Sterling closed the file. He removed his reading glasses slowly. He looked up. Liam had seen the CEO before, of course, at the annual town hall meetings, standing on a stage 500 feet away, surrounded by lights. Up close, the man was intense. His eyes were piercing, intelligent, and currently unreadable. "Mr. Miller," Arthur said. His voice was smooth, deep, and utterly commanding. "Thank you for joining me on such short notice. Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, sir," Liam managed. I was told there was an issue with my exit assets." "Is there an issue with my laptop?" Arthur asked, not looking up from his monitor. "Sit down." Arthur gestured to a leather chair in front of the desk. Liam sat. The chair was more comfortable than his bed. "There is an issue," Arthur said, leaning back and tenting his fingers. "But it's not about a laptop. It's about a check. Check number 4092, issued to you yesterday at 4 p.m., value $3,200. Liam froze. They tracked it. "Yes, sir," Liam said, his heart hammering. "That was my severance." "Was," Arthur repeated, past tense, "because at 8:15 p.m. last night, that check was flagged by our accounting department. It wasn't deposited into your account, Mr. Miller. It was countersigned and cashed at a 24-hour check-cashing facility in Hell's Kitchen."
Liam stepped out. The wind whipped at his unbuttoned suit jacket, biting through his thin shirt. He looked up at the building where he had spent the last 2 years checking spreadsheets and terrified of missing deadlines. He used to feel pride walking in here. Now he felt like a trespasser at a crime scene. He walked to the main entrance. The security guard at the desk wasn't the usual guy, Ralph, who Liam sometimes exchanged sports scores with. It was a man in a tactical suit, wearing an earpiece. "ID?" the guard asked, not looking up from his monitor. I don't have it," Liam admitted, patting his pockets uselessly. "I turned it in yesterday. My name is Liam Miller. I was told to come here." The guard looked up. His eyes were cold. "Miller, you're cleared. Elevator bank C. Take it to the top." "The top?" Liam blinked. "HR is on the 14th floor." "I didn't say HR," the guard replied, turning back to his screen. "I said the top." Liam swallowed hard. Elevator bank C was the executive lift. It was reserved for VP level and above. In 2 years, Liam had never even stood near it, let alone inside it. Rumor had it the interior was lined with velvet. He walked past the empty turnstiles and approached the gold-plated doors of Bank C. He pressed the button. The doors slid open instantly with a soft whoosh. It wasn't velvet, but it was close. The walls were paneled in mahogany. There were no buttons for floors 1 through 50. There was only a card reader and a single button labeled PH. Penthouse. Liam pressed it. Nothing happened. "Oh God," he whispered. "I'm stuck." Suddenly the panel beeped. A voice came from the ceiling speaker. "Biometric scan confirmed. Welcome, Mr. Miller." The car lurched upward.
It moved with a speed that made his ears pop. Liam watched the floor numbers on the digital display blur. 20, 30, 40, 50. His mind raced. Why the penthouse? This wasn't about a missing laptop. You don't bring a junior analyst to the CEO's office to discuss a severance check error, unless he had done something illegal. Had the check bounced? Was the Santa actually part of a money laundering ring? Had he accidentally funded terrorism with his Christmas bonus? The elevator chimed. PH. The doors opened directly into a room, not a hallway. Liam stepped out onto a carpet so thick he felt his shoes sink an inch. The room was cavernous. A fireplace the size of a garage roared on the far wall. The furniture was modern, leather, and terrifyingly expensive. And the view. The entire south wall was glass, offering a panoramic snow-dusted view of the Empire State Building in Lower Manhattan. But Liam didn't look at the view. He looked at the desk. It was a massive slab of black marble sitting in the center of the room. Behind it sat a man. Arthur Sterling was reading a file. He didn't look up when the elevator dinged. He didn't look up when Liam stepped out. He simply turned a page, the sound of the paper echoing in the silent room. Liam stood there, awkward and terrified, his hands clasped in front of him like a schoolboy sent to the principal. "Mr. Sterling?" Liam's voice was a squeak. He cleared his throat. "Mr. Sterling, sir?" Arthur Sterling closed the file. He removed his reading glasses slowly. He looked up. Liam had seen the CEO before, of course, at the annual town hall meetings, standing on a stage 500 feet away, surrounded by lights. Up close, the man was intense. His eyes were piercing, intelligent, and currently unreadable. "Mr. Miller," Arthur said. His voice was smooth, deep, and utterly commanding. "Thank you for joining me on such short notice. Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, sir," Liam managed. I was told there was an issue with my exit assets." "Is there an issue with my laptop?" Arthur asked, not looking up from his monitor. "Sit down." Arthur gestured to a leather chair in front of the desk. Liam sat. The chair was more comfortable than his bed. "There is an issue," Arthur said, leaning back and tenting his fingers. "But it's not about a laptop. It's about a check. Check number 4092, issued to you yesterday at 4 p.m., value $3,200. Liam froze. They tracked it. "Yes, sir," Liam said, his heart hammering. "That was my severance." "Was," Arthur repeated, past tense, "because at 8:15 p.m. last night, that check was flagged by our accounting department. It wasn't deposited into your account, Mr. Miller. It was countersigned and cashed at a 24-hour check cashing facility in Hell's Kitchen."
Arthur picked up a piece of paper, a photocopy of the cashed check. The signature on the back, Arthur slid the paper across the marble desk, is legible, but the ID used to cash it belonged to a man named Old Joe, no fixed address, known for vagrancy. Liam looked at the photocopy. He felt sick. "Mr. Miller," Arthur's voice dropped an octave, becoming dangerous. "Omnicorp has strict policies against the misuse of company funds. Severance packages are for the employee's transition. When we see a junior employee handing over his entire payout to a transient within 4 hours of termination, it raises red flags. It looks like a payoff. Drug debt? Gambling? Blackmail?" Arthur leaned forward, his eyes locking onto Liam's. "Tell me, Liam, why did you give your money to a homeless man? And don't lie to me. I can smell a lie from the lobby." Liam gripped the armrests of the chair. He felt the sweat trickling down his back. He could lie. He could say he lost it. He could say he was robbed. But then he remembered the Santa's eyes, the despair. "It wasn't a drug debt," Liam said, his voice quiet but steady. He looked up, meeting the CEO's gaze. "And it wasn't a payoff. Then what was it? Charity? Stupidity?" "Maybe both," Liam admitted. "I saw him on 51st Street. He was freezing. He looked like he was done, like he was ready to just stop existing." Liam took a breath. "I had just been fired, Mr. Sterling. I felt worthless. I was standing there holding that check, terrified of how I was going to pay rent. And then I looked at him, and I realized
I'm just lucky. That's the only difference between me and him. Bad luck, a bad month, a bad restructuring decision. Liam paused, realizing he had just insulted the CEO's decision. He didn't care. I couldn't walk away, Liam continued, his voice gaining strength. My mom raised me to believe that if you have enough to survive, you have enough to share. He needed it more than I did. I can get another job. I can sleep on a friend's couch. He was going to die out there. Arthur stared at him. His expression didn't change. So you gave away your safety net for a stranger? Yes. Do you regret it? Arthur asked quickly, knowing now that you have an eviction notice on your door. We checked your credit, Liam. We know you're broke. Do you wish you had that money back right now? The room went silent. The fire crackled. Liam thought about the eviction notice, the orange paper, the fear. I'm scared. I don't know where I'm going to live next month. But no, I don't regret it. Why not? Because he looked at me, said Liam, a faint smile touching his lips. When I gave it to him, he looked at me like I was a human being. And for the first time since I walked out of this building yesterday, I felt like one too. Arthur Sterling stared at the young man. He looked for the crack in the armor, the hesitation, the virtue signaling. He found none. Arthur slowly opened the desk drawer. You have a lot of integrity, Mr. Miller. It's a rare quality. Dangerous in this business. It usually gets people eaten alive. Arthur pulled out an object from the drawer. It wasn't a contract. It wasn't a termination form.
It was a dirty, matted, red Santa hat with white fur trim that looked like gray slush. He placed the dirty hat on the pristine marble desk, right between them. Liam stared at the hat, his brain short-circuited. He looked at the hat, then he looked at Arthur. He looked at Arthur's eyes, the piercing blue eyes. The realization hit him like a freight train. "Wait," Liam whispered, the blood draining from his face. "That hat! The eyes!" Arthur Sterling leaned back in his chair, and for the first time a genuine warm smile broke across his face. "Hello, Liam," Arthur said, his voice dropping the CEO polish and adopting the gravelly rasp of the street. "You got fired from there? Merry Christmas to me, right?" Liam jumped out of his chair, stumbling back. "You? You were... But why?" "Sit down, son," Arthur chuckled. "We have a lot to discuss, and I believe I owe you a thank-you note." Liam stared at the dirty red hat sitting on the polished black marble like a roadkill on a dinner plate. He looked at Arthur Sterling, the titan of industry, who was currently swirling his scotch and watching Liam with an expression of benevolent amusement. The room felt suddenly too hot. The air pressure seemed to drop. "You?" Liam stammered, pointing a shaking finger at the hat, then at the CEO. "You were him! The shaking! The smell! You were shivering!" "Acting, Mr. Miller," Arthur said, taking a sip of his Macallan. "Stanislavski method. If you want to understand the cold, you have to let it in. If you want to understand invisibility, you have to let people look right through you." "But why?" Liam asked, his voice rising. The shock was wearing off, replaced by a sudden sharp flare of indignation. "You own this building. You own half the city. Why would you sit in the slush on Christmas Eve begging for change?" Arthur set his glass down. The amusement vanished from his face, replaced by a somber gravity. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the sprawling metropolis below. "Because down there," Arthur pointed to the street, "nobody lies to a homeless man. When I wear this suit," he gestured to his silk jacket, "everyone tells me what I want to hear. My VPs tell me profits are up. My assistants tell me my jokes are funny. My lawyers tell me I'm invincible. I live in a hall of mirrors, Liam, a billion-dollar echo chamber." Arthur turned back to face him. "But when I put on that hat, I see the truth.
I see the disgust in people's eyes. I see who kicks the cup. And occasionally, very rarely, I see someone who stops. Arthur walked back to the desk and picked up the dirty red hat, running his thumb over the grime-stained fur. I've done this for 10 years. Do you know how many Omnicorp employees walked past me last night? 314. I counted. Do you know how many stopped to check if I was alive? Liam stayed silent, waiting. 0, Arthur whispered, until you. Liam felt the anger bubble up again. It was a righteous heat in his chest. So it was a game? Liam said, his voice tight. My life falling apart, my in-eviction notice, me giving you my last dime. It was just a psychological experiment for a bored billionaire? Arthur's eyes flashed. He didn't get angry back. He nodded, accepting the blow. You have every right to be pissed off, Liam. In fact, if you weren't pissed off, I'd be worried. Yes, it was a test, but not a game. A game implies there are no stakes. The stakes here are the soul of this company. Arthur pressed a button on his desk. The massive mahogany doors behind Liam opened. Jenkins, Arthur called out. Bring it in. Jenkins, the stoic assistant, walked in carrying a silver tray. On it was a single white envelope, the same envelope Liam had handed to the Santa. I didn't cash it. That check never left my inner pocket. The story about old Joe and the check-cashing place was a lie, a stress test to see if you'd panic to try and cancel the funds to save yourself. You didn't. You let it ride. That showed me you were committed to your principles, even when it hurt. Arthur picked up the envelope and held it out to Liam. Take it back. It's your money.
Liam looked at the envelope. He thought about his landlord. He thought about food. He reached out and took it. It felt heavy, real. Now, Arthur said, leaning against the edge of his desk, crossing his arms, let's talk about your future. You were fired yesterday by an algorithm designed by Marcus Thorne. Thorne believes that efficiency is the only metric that matters. He cut you because on paper your productivity was average. You spent too much time helping other departments. You stayed late to fix problems that weren't in your job description. The algorithm saw that as inefficiency. I see it as leadership. Arthur picked up a remote and clicked it. A large screen on the wall flickered to life. It showed an organizational chart of Omnicorp. I am firing Marcus Thorne this afternoon, Arthur stated casually, as if discussing the lunch menu. Liam blinked. You're what? Thorne is a cancer. He treats people like overhead. I can't have that. Not anymore. Arthur looked at Liam. But that leaves a vacancy. Now, I can't make you VP of operations. You're 28 and you don't have the experience. The shareholders would revolt. Liam nodded slowly. Okay. However, Arthur clicked the remote again. A new box appeared on the org chart, right next to the CEO. It was highlighted in gold. I am creating a new position, effective immediately. The text on the screen read, Special Executive Liaison. What is that? Liam asked. It's a conscience, Arthur said. I need someone who isn't afraid to tell me the truth. Someone who knows what it feels like to be on the bottom rung. I need eyes and ears on the ground floor. I need you to audit not the finances, but the culture of this company. If a manager is abusing staff, I want to know. If a policy is hurting families, I want to know. You will report directly to me. No middle management, no buffers. Arthur walked over to Liam and extended his hand. Starting salary is $150,000 a year, full benefits, stock options, and a signing bonus of $50,000 to cover your immediate housing issues. Liam stared at the hand. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. 5 minutes ago he was a suspect. Yesterday he was a beggar. Now he was being offered the keys to the kingdom. Why me? Liam whispered. I'm just a junior analyst. I made coffee, I fixed spreadsheets. You looked a freezing man in the eye and treated him like an equal, Arthur said fiercely.
You can teach a monkey to fix a spreadsheet, Liam. You cannot teach a man to have a heart. I can buy intelligence. I cannot buy integrity. I found it on a sidewalk on Fifth Avenue. Arthur waited, his hand still extended. So, Mr. Miller, do you want to go back to Queens and look for a new job, or do you want to help me burn the dead wood out of this company and build something decent? Liam looked at the envelope in his hand, his severance. Then he looked at Arthur's hand. He thought about the Santa. He thought about the other 190 people who got fired yesterday. If I take this job, Liam said, his voice steadying, I have one condition. Arthur raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Negotiating already? Good. What is it? The other 190 people, Liam said, the ones Thorne fired. We hire them back, but not to push paper. We retrain them. We use them to audit the AI systems Thorne implemented. Machines don't have ethics. These people do. We need them to keep the algorithm in check. Arthur Sterling stared at Liam. A slow, wide grin spread across his face. It was the look of a man who had just found exactly what he was looking for. Jenkins, Arthur shouted over his shoulder. Yes, sir. Draft the rehiring memos, all 190 personnel, full reinstatement, effective January 1st. Arthur turned back to Liam and gripped his hand firmly. Deal. Deal, Liam said, shaking the hand that had held the empty cup yesterday. Now, Arthur checked his watch, it's Christmas Day. I imagine you have nowhere to go, and my family is, well, my family is the board of directors, and I hate them. Do you like steak? I love steak, Liam admitted, his stomach suddenly rumbling loudly in the quiet office. Good. Arthur walked back to his desk and pressed a button. Jenkins, have the chef prepare the tomahawks and open the 82 Bordeaux. Mr. Miller and I have a company to save.
Arthur grabbed the dirty Santa hat off the desk and tossed it into the roaring fireplace. They both watched as the flames caught the grimy wool, curling it into ash. The symbol of Liam's despair burned away, fueling the warmth of the room. One more thing, Liam, Arthur said, opening a drawer and pulling out a pristine silver Omnicorp security badge. He slid it across the desk. It already had Liam's name on it, but under title, it didn't say Junior Analyst. It read, Liam Miller, Chief Ethics Officer. Don't lose it, Arthur winked. That gives you access to the executive elevator. No more waiting in the lobby. Liam picked up the badge. He looked out the window at the snow falling over New York. It didn't look like ash anymore. It looked like diamonds. Thank you, Arthur, Liam said. Not Mr. Sterling, Arthur. Don't thank me yet, Arthur laughed, heading for the private dining room door. Wait until you see the mess Thorne left in logistics. You're going to earn every penny of that salary. Liam followed him, slipping the badge into his pocket, right next to the uncashed check he would never need to cash. He walked with a new stride, not the shuffle of the defeated, but the walk of a man who had been tested by the cold and found his own inner fire. Like and subscribe for more stories about justice, karma, and the power of kindness.